Hi there, my name's Sean, and I'm 17 years old. Today, I'm going to tell you about the time I became a butler for a single mom and her twin daughters. Before I fully get into it, make sure to hit that like button to show your support. And if you want to see more videos like this, then hit that subscribe button. I wasn't born into wealth or money. My family were working class, and I went to a public school that wasn't known for its quality education. My parents worked hard to keep up with ends meet, and when I turned 13, I did all I could to help them as well. Mowing lawns, babysitting, dog walking, anything a 13-year-old could do realistically, I did it. I'm 17 now, and while my family's still staying afloat, money still isn't pouring in. Because of that, I made the choice to not go to college. I graduated high school and dedicated most of my time to part-time jobs and other side hustles. One day at one of my part-time jobs, my manager knew of my family's financial situation. She was a really nice and cool manager. She even allowed me to bring home some spare food so we didn't have to buy groceries for a few days. She pulled me aside one time and was like, "I know you're not rolling in riches, which is why I have this friend of mine who needs an assistant." Well, anyone who needs an assistant seems like the type of person to have enough money to afford one. Her name is Victoria, and she has a full-time job as a medical lawyer.
What?
So, things at home can become very hectic.
Yeah.
Well, now I know she's rolling in dough.
What?
And with her two daughters starting college, she needs someone to help her with the housework. I asked how much she would be willing to pay, and the hours included. But my manager just told me to talk to her herself, if I was interested. Obviously, doing housework and chores is simple enough. And if I can earn extra cash, then I wouldn't mind shifting around my schedule. She gave me her friend's phone number and address before telling me to get back to work before anyone notices my absence. When I got off my shift, I received a text from the number I got from my manager. It was Victoria, asking if I was the person interested in becoming her assistant. To cut a boring conversation short, she was offering $50 an hour from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Saturday. That's $500 a day and $3,000 a week. That's more than half the jobs I do combined. I responded to her that I'm definitely interested and that I'd love to meet her in person to discuss more details. I've been in more than enough interviews to know how to work a person. Victoria told me she'd love to as well, and told me to be at her house at 10 in the morning the next day. The next day, I drove into her neighborhood. I expected a giant mansion with an Olympic-sized swimming pool in the back.
It's kind of a
The house
mansion.
she lived in was nowhere near that size. It was an upper middle class, good size, but not a whole estate. Of course, to me, it might as well have been a mansion. I don't know why, but meeting someone who lived in a house as big as that intimidated me. I took the family car that time, but she didn't live that far from me, so I could take a bus when my parents worked. And in a month or two's time, I could probably get myself an older car as well. When I got out of my car, the front door was open, and a woman was already standing in the doorway. My nerves shot up solely from that. "You Sean?" the woman asked when I came closer to the door. I nodded. "Yeah, nice to meet you." She gave me a smile, and that's when I noticed that she was very pretty. "Hello, Sean. I'm Victoria Archer." She and I shook hands, and I took notice of her firm grip. She was experienced in meetings like these. "Come in, and we can discuss." She led me into her house. It was probably the nicest thing I've ever seen in my life. My daughters are at their orientation. They'll be home soon. Basically, to sum it up, she needed someone to upkeep the house while she and her daughters were away from it. No one else is there to help, so it can get quite messy real quickly, even when they pick up after themselves. She said if the time was too grueling for me, we could adjust it, but I told her it was fine. I'd just have to make a few calls. A little after I arrived at her house, her daughters came home. They were twins, 18 years old. Their names were Rose and Ariana. Rose was older by 3 minutes.
3 minutes,
When they came home, the house instantly flooded with their loud, raucous voices. Victoria didn't seem surprised. "Girls, come meet Sean," she called out. I could hear their footsteps come closer into the living room until they appeared in the doorway. My first opinion when I saw them was that they both looked like the perfect kind of people to get into rambunctious trouble. Well, I was half right. They did get into trouble, but they dragged me into it. "Sean, this is Rose and Ariana." Victoria said. They're both starting college in 2 weeks. You two, this is Sean, our maybe housekeeper. The two of them looked at me, and suddenly they became all giddy, pushing each other around and giggling like schoolgirls. Victoria didn't seem surprised at it. Don't
Either.
mind them. They get like that when they see an attractive boy.
I'm not attractive.
Well,
I mean, most girls don't talk to me. I don't even know
I
why I have to
guess
point that
I
out.
should have been glad that they found me attractive. I suppose. After that, the twins stuck around for the rest of Victoria's and my talk. Everything was going fine until the end of it. Victoria and I shook hands on an established schedule. And as soon as we did, Rose and Ariana were arguing over who I would help. Come on, I'm the older child, so I get first dibs. By 3 minutes. And don't be so lazy that you can't carry things yourself. At least I throw out my water bottles. It got to a point where Victoria had to step in and instruct them to go upstairs to their bedrooms. I'm sorry about them. They can get quite carried away, she said.
That's kind of an understatement.
What
They're
they
like
said wasn't
arguing with each
completely
other.
wrong. If one of them needs help, I'm paying you to help them. Well, you can't really argue with a sound argument like that. Mostly because she was right. Well, that night, I called some of my managers and basically said, hey, yeah, I'm quitting. Thanks for a great time. So that was the end of that. I started the week before the twins went to college, and most of the jobs I did was tidying up the house and preparing meals. It wasn't anything I couldn't do. However, one thing that made my job difficult was Rose and Ariana. If they were home and I was there trying to do my job, they were in the same room with me. Hey, Sean, could you help me with my room, please? Rose would ask, and then Ariana would butt in, asking me to help her clean out her car. Or something else. The two often got into small scuffles that would need to be broken up by their mother. I'm sorry for them. They can get quite rambunctious. Rambunctious is an understatement.
Understatement.
They'd probably fight each other if they really wanted to. When they actually started going to college, both of them asked me to help carry their stuff. Rose was double majoring, and Ariana was majoring and minoring. So, because of that, they had a lot of school books. So, I helped them carry it to their respective classes. One would always thank me by buying lunch or a snack, and the other one would thank me by slipping me some cash. I wasn't going to turn them down either. They were literally
Tipping me for doing what you
doing
were
what I
told to
was
do.
told to do.
Yeah, that
It
makes
was a
sense.
really easy way to make quick money.
Okay,
And
don't.
besides, the twins fighting each other over me, it wasn't really that hard. One time during
Dude,
dinner,
I
it
would
was
hate
close for
having
me to
people
go
fight
home.
over me,
But
believe me.
Victoria had a day off for the first time in forever. She wanted to reward me for doing my job exceptionally and not slacking off. So, she spent a few hours cooking up dinner herself. Rose and Ariana were also excited since they didn't receive home-cooked meals by Victoria a lot. She invited me to stay as well. I just finished cooking and you're going to leave? Come on, I made plenty. You can even take some leftovers home for your family as well. Well,
I
with
mean, she's
that
not
logic,
wrong.
it made sense. She did make a lot, and it would save my family some energy. That was actually the first time I've sat down with them to eat. It was barely 10 minutes into dinner before the twins started their
Your antics again.
Hey, Sean, did you know I aced my past tests? Rose asked. Well, I got recognized in my class for being top contributor, Ariana would interject.
Oh.
It was a constant back and forth of who was better than the other. Now,
Hey, j'ai attendu toute ma vie pour voir une
I
éclipse.
swear if the
Votre
girl
attente va
with the
enfin être
mom starts
récompensée.
going in, I
Inscrivez
hate
la
that.
carte BMO éclipse.
girls, I'm sure Sean thinks both of you are amazing, don't you? She looked at me as if she knew she was already right. Well, yeah, I replied. I think double majoring and minoring are both amazing things to do. Even though I was honest, all three of them beamed at me. I'm glad you think that, Victoria said, because I'm aware of your family's financial situation, and I'm willing to lend a hand to you. Mom, don't try to butter him up. I was unfortunately caught between clashing familial feelings. Rose got angry, and Victoria, who in turn became more firm. I'm simply telling him he has options. No, you're trying to steal him all for yourself.
First of all, she's
so awkward sitting at
me,
that
not a
table.
man.
Never before had I had 3 women argue over me so fervently. All right, fine, Victoria finally said. Why don't we just let Sean pick then? All of their heads swiveled towards me like owls. And I had this sudden urge to go home, where I knew I was safe. Sean, you have everything you could ever need or want here. I could even support your parents if you wanted, Victoria said. You've been a big help to my family. What better way to repay it than by helping yours? I mean, you could just give me money. That's really all I need. I don't need a big house or fancy appliances. Or you could just continue to help me and Ariana with our college, Rose said. It's more fun with people your age.
Oh
I didn't miss the
god.
absolute
Also,
emphasis on
technically
the
the
last
mother's
part.
paying him.
Or he could just continue being our servant like he has for the past month or so,
Dude,
Ariana said.
she's...
Ari, Sean is not our servant, Victoria said. He's an assistant.
There's a difference.
The only difference is he gets paid.
What?
Oh boy.
Is that
Things
serious?
were really starting to heat up now.
Fair.
I felt like I had just willingly crawled into the lion's den. All of them didn't know whether to glare at each other or at me. They wanted me to pick, to choose between them, which I didn't even know how to. Who do you think I should have picked? Or who would be the best person to work closer with than others? I need to hear some opinions, so please leave them in the comments below.
Dude, the mother's one of your best options right now. Here we go.
Happier to have them. Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm 35
I'm
years
only
old.
doing 3 if
I'm
I
going to tell
can.
you an unusual story regarding my family. Before that, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to show
Sure.
your support to me. I've been married for more than 15 years now.
Oh.
I met my wife Sarah at my workplace. We instantly hit it off and started dating after a few weeks. There weren't many other complications, and we're both well settled, so we decided to get married early. Now here's the thing. After so many years of marriage, I have 6 daughters. Quite unbelievable, right? But whatever. I love all of my daughters so much and couldn't be happier to have them in my life. Everything was going perfectly for me. So perfectly that it seemed too good to be true. I'd been promoted over the years, and now I was at a high position in my company. Sarah had quit her job long ago. My job used to keep me busy, so I didn't really have much time to pay attention to my family. I think this is where everything went downhill. I had no idea what was happening behind my back. I barely got time on the weekends to spend with my family. Sarah took advantage of my absence and carried out her plan. You must be confused as to what I'm talking about. So let me start from the point when I started having doubts. My eldest daughter, Elise, often used to mention this other guy who gave her a lot of presents. Is he your friend? I asked her one day. Or someone you like? What? No, she quickly replied. Gosh, Dad, he's too old. And he's Mom's friend. Oh, where did you meet him? I frowned. He comes here often, she shrugged. I guess you've never met him because he only stops by when you're not around. Well, that was enough to set off my warning bells in my head. Sarah had never mentioned any such friend to me. I mean, she didn't have to, but this guy sounded hella suspicious. He sounds like a nice guy, I said to Elise. Can you call me the next time he's here so I can meet him? Sure, she replied. I hope he brings me the latest iPhone that I mentioned last time. What? I exclaimed.
What?
He gives you such expensive things? Yep, she nodded. He seems pretty rich to me, though I wonder what his job is and why he's so free to visit us all the time. Now this was serious. I asked Sarah what this was all about, and she just treated it very casually. Why are you getting so worked up? He's just an old friend who likes giving us presents, she said. There's not much to it. Something told me that arguing with her wasn't going to do any good. So I decided to meet this generous, so-called friend myself. Elise called me a few days later to inform me of his arrival. I left my office and rushed home. Sarah gasped when she opened the door for me. What are you doing here? She asked in shock. I forgot a file in my room. I lied. But why are you so flustered? Something wrong? I walked past her without waiting for her to reply and found a very familiar man sitting in the living room. He seemed equally surprised to see me. Kevin? I asked hesitantly. He nodded slowly. Kevin was my subordinate at the company. Both of us had started working at the same time, but he hadn't been able to make much progress. It made sense that Jessica knew him because she used to work with us too. But the puzzling thing was the fact that Kevin was nowhere near as loaded as Elise had mentioned. As a matter of fact, he was under a lot of debt, and he usually slacked off at his job, too. "So this is where you spend your time when you should be working instead?" I asked him. I was just," he started, but was cut off when Sarah stepped in. "I called him," she said. "He's a really good friend of mine, and the kids like him a lot." "Is that so?" I raised an eyebrow. "Where do you get the money to buy these expensive things, Kevin?" He didn't reply. "Dad, why are you being so rude?" Elise intervened.
What?
"He's such a nice person. Look, he even bought me this iPhone today." Nice person, my foot. Something was really fishy here, but I decided not to humiliate him in front of the kids. I went back to the office. It was clear to me that Sarah was hiding something from me. And of course, she wasn't going to tell me, so my other option was to find out for myself. I decided to keep tabs on her for a week. When she said that she was going shopping with her friends, I discreetly followed her. As I suspected, she was meeting with Kevin. Not just that, she even gave him the money that she had brought for shopping. So this is where he was getting all that money to buy those expensive gifts. Basically, this guy was using my money to impress my daughters. Wow, people these days. It
True.
became clear to me after a week that Sarah was cheating on me with Kevin, and it seemed like she wasn't even bothering to hide it anymore. She was clearly dropping all the hints. I was worried about the kids. They were going to be really upset if they got to know about this. But still, it was better not to drag out the inevitable anymore. I decided to talk to Sarah one day when the kids weren't at home. I'd taken early leave from the office. As soon as I entered the house, though, I heard Sarah's voice coming from the bedroom. It seemed like she was talking to someone on the phone. "Of course, it seems like he's finally caught on," she was saying. "It won't be long now before he asks for a divorce. And then, as per the plan, we'll get the child support from him. You won't have to work for the rest of your life." Whoa! What the hell? I kept quiet, trying to listen to more of this conversation that was certainly about me. Yes. We will have to see about the kids. I mean, their expenses alone are too much," she continued. "Oh, and you know what? They seem to like you a lot, as they should. You are their real father, after all. Seriously, I don't know how Chris still doesn't know that he can't have children. We couldn't have found a better prey." I stopped listening after that. Their real father? I was their father, right? What kind of crap was she spewing? My heart started beating fast, and it felt like I was going to faint from shock. I needed to get out of there. I couldn't tolerate Sarah's presence anymore. I don't know what came upon me, but I drove straight to the hospital. The doctor ran some tests upon my request, and my worst fear came true. I was sterile. So what I heard was true. None of my daughters were actually mine. So that meant Sarah had been fooling me for years. I felt like throwing up. But most importantly, I actually felt my heart breaking at the thought of separating from my daughters. Sarah had been lying to me so that she could get money for child support and lead a carefree life with Kevin. Well, now I could easily prove that they weren't my daughters. And that's what I did. I filed for divorce as Sarah wanted, but when she brought up the topic of child support, I submitted my test results. The expression on her face was priceless. She must have thought that I'd never find out.
What if you could earn $600 per year listening to the music you love? You can earn money online while listening to your favorite music.
Well, now she was stuck with a broke dude and 6 kids to look after. And it was clear that they had no source of income. This was my plan, to make them completely helpless. Kevin ditched Sarah at the last moment and ran off to God knows where. As for Sarah, she had no option but to give up the kids.
I get to
She
play the
couldn't
games
provide for
again.
them. This is where I came in. I adopted all the girls after proving that I had more than enough money to support them. The most tragic part, though, was Elise's reaction. The rest of the girls were too young to understand what was going on, but Elise caught on quickly. "So, our real dad is that guy who used to bring us gifts?" she asked dejectedly. "And Mom was planning to trick you into giving her money so she could live with him?" I sighed. "Elise, listen to me. I'm still your dad. Nothing changes that fact, okay? Don't think about what your mom did. And forget about that Kevin dude, too. Think of the whole thing as a bad dream. They don't deserve our attention. Everything is fine now. You can relax." "But Mom made a fool out of us," she exclaimed. "Aren't you angry?" I shook my head. She got what she deserved. There's no point talking about her anymore. However, you still miss her. "No," Elise quickly cut me off. "I don't miss her at all. Just thinking about her makes my blood boil. All those times, She always tried to make you look bad, saying how you were always busy with work and stuff. But the reality is, you're the only one who's still here with us. She didn't even hesitate before lying and cheating. I felt bad for Elise, but it seemed like she was mature enough to cope with everything. The best thing was that now the toxic people were out of our lives. I made it a point to spend more time with the girls now. I wasn't going to repeat the same mistake twice and neglect the only family I had.
It's actually a good thing.
Hi, my name is Eric, and I'm 30 years old. Before I tell you my story, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to show your support for me. I'm a psychology professor at a college, but my job doesn't pay me enough to cover the expenses of my family, or more like the expenses of my wife. My wife, Amelia, has always been a bit extravagant with everything. She likes buying expensive clothes and accessories and goes out to shop for stuff every day. So even my salary as a professor wasn't enough to fulfill all her needs. I had no option but to search for another job. No, I wasn't quitting my teaching job. Rather, I needed to do 2 jobs. I got an online job soon enough, and just when I thought I wouldn't have to worry about things for a while, there was another tragedy. Because of some unavoidable circumstances, everything was closed down for a while and I had to conduct classes online. It was a bit of a hassle at first because neither I nor my students were used to it, and I had to set up everything at home for smooth conduct of my classes. I'd informed Amelia beforehand not to disturb me during my class timings. So, on the first day of the online class, I was teaching without any worries when suddenly someone started banging at the door. There was no one else in the house other than Amelia, so I knew it had to be her. "Excuse me for a second," I said to my students, and was about to get up from my seat when the door just burst open, and Amelia came in looking very mad. "Why did you come inside? I'm in the middle of a class," I exclaimed. She shrugged. "I was knocking for so long, but you didn't respond, so I helped myself." She called that knocking? I heard some snickers from my laptop and turned around to realize that the mic wasn't muted. My eyes widened and I rushed forward to mute the mic, but Amelia blocked my way. She glanced at my laptop and turned to me with a frown. "Why are you so eager? What's there to hide?" "Amelia, I was giving a lecture and you're interrupting," I said through gritted teeth. Sure. It's not like I wanted to do this." She rolled her eyes. "But there's no balance on your card. I went shopping with my friend earlier. And do you know how much embarrassment I had to face?
Wow.
Did you do it on purpose to humiliate me?" "Why would I do
Probably.
such a thing?" I asked incredulously. "You must have used up all the money. How can you blame it on me?" "Of course, you and your broke self are to be blamed,"
Oh,
she
God.
scoffed. I took a deep breath. "Can we do this later? I'll give you a different card to use for now."
Investing for the first time as a millennial be like, what is a stock? What store?
Whatever. She made a disgusted face, then left. Wow. Just wow. I knew she had a tendency to be a bit childish and throw tantrums from time to time, but this was a new level even for her.
Was it bad?
I apologized to my students for the disturbance. I was expecting them to make fun of me or something, but surprisingly, they said it was fine and they understood. I sighed in relief and continued with the class. I talked to Amelia later and asked her not to do that type of thing again. She retorted saying it wasn't even a big deal.
What?
I didn't expect her to understand, to be honest. She'd always been like this, not ready to listen to reason and just do as she pleased. I don't know why I still liked her so foolishly.
Yeah, I
The thought of
suppose.
ending things with her scared me.
Same
That was
with
an option
me.
I didn't
I
even
would
want to
hate
consider.
that
So most of the time, I just let her antics slide. And I actually thought she would listen to me this time. But I was so stupid to think that. Again, during my next class, she barged in and started yelling at me. She didn't even let me mute my mic and stood in front of me. "I'm getting tired of living like this," she yelled. "Why do I have to suffer because you don't earn enough money? What happened now? I gave you all my cards," I exclaimed. "Wow, and what do you think? That you're super rich and giving me your cards will solve the problem?" she mocked, and turned to face the screen of my laptop. I
Oh,
held my
crud.
breath. What now?
No.
She was definitely going to make a scene in front of my students. "Look here, everyone. Your professor's not even able to afford simple things. Despite what he looks like, the truth is he's super broke," she said with a smirk. "You don't want to end up like him, do you? Don't follow in his footsteps."
What?
There was absolute silence on the other side, and Amelia suddenly started laughing. "It seems like you all need time to digest everything," she said, and then turned around to leave. I was so ashamed that I didn't even know how to continue anymore. I was about to end the class then and there when some of my students started speaking. Sir, no offense or anything, but your wife is too much. Yeah, she has no right to say such things about you, wife or not. And how can she disturb you every day, even after your repeated warnings? We don't blame you, sir.
Sure.
You don't have to worry. We understand your situation.
Like she really.
Wow. I never would
What
have
a
believed that my
student.
students were so mature. They said they would support me no matter what. And even after that day, they kept sending me support emails. Anyway, I wasn't going to risk it anymore. I started locking my door while I was conducting class. Amelia could keep banging on the door, but I learned to ignore her, and so did my students. After a few days, she stopped. It was a bit weird because I knew her. She never gave up in such situations, and she was definitely mad, so I prepared myself. But she grew quiet all of a sudden and stopped coming to my room altogether. Everything was peaceful for a few days, but one day, suddenly, a random video was played on the screen while I was teaching an important topic. I looked for the source to see that it was being done by an unfamiliar student. Then it hit me. It was Amelia. It had to be her. She had somehow joined the class and found this new way of disrupting things. I got a call from some of my students later. They said that they were suspicious that Amelia was somehow keeping tabs on my Zoom calls. Well, I figured as much. We can get rid of this problem for you, if you would allow us, a student offered. I didn't think much of it and said yes. After all, I was tired, and I didn't have the energy to deal with Amelia anymore. The next day, the female students in my class started flirting with me during the class hours. At first, I thought it was a joke, but soon I realized that this was their plan all along. They were doing this knowing completely well that Amelia was watching everything. And as if on cue, Amelia barged into the room minutes later with a very scary expression on her face. Wow, as if it wasn't enough that you're broke, now you're cheating too? She fumed. Who do you think you are? Is this your way of getting back at me? If you hate me that much, then why don't you just leave? Get out. I don't want to see your face. What the hell? Cheating? I tried to speak calmly to her, but she wasn't ready to listen. At that moment, the best option was just to pack my bags and leave.
Dude,
And that's what I did.
Like,
But I
you
had nowhere to
realize
go.
it's his
Just what the
thing
hell was going
later.
on in my life? How could my
No, I
wife do
wouldn't.
this
I
after
like that
everything
was
I
the
did to
first place.
please her? Was I too much of a pushover? Surprisingly, though, my students were waiting for me around the corner. I gaped at them. What are you all doing here? I asked in shock. Sorry, sir. Did we cause too much trouble with your wife? A student named Skylar asked. We just wanted you to get away from that hellhole. It's quite clear she's too toxic for you. I couldn't deny their words, and honestly, I'd seen this coming. I'd been hanging on to the last thread of hope, but it was only hurting me. I had to thank my students for going to such lengths for me. They told me that they already had a room ready for me in the shared student building that they lived in. Could I be any more grateful to them than I already was? Though things weren't over yet with Amelia. After seeing her behavior, we were a bit concerned, so we decided to do some digging. Skylar told me, we're really sorry for interfering in your personal matters, but that woman is clearly not in her right mind. It's funny how she accused you of cheating when she's the one who's been fooling around behind your back. It felt like I'd been hit by a ton of bricks. What? What are you talking about? I asked in a shaky voice. Skylar gave me a grim look and handed over some photos. Those were photos of Amelia hanging out with some guy, and they were clearly involved with each other romantically. She's been pretending to be rich with all that money you gave her, Skylar said. That guy doesn't even know you exist. She's been telling him lies. I think he buys her expensive stuff all the time. That's why she hangs out with him. Wow, it must have all been so convenient for Amelia, while making me look like a fool all this time. Why did I ever love her? Don't you want to get back at her, sir? Skylar asked. It wasn't about revenge or getting back at her. I didn't want that guy to fall into her trap. That's why I decided to expose Amelia's truth in front of him. I found out from my students that she'd asked that guy to move into her house, more like my house. She must have thought that I'd never bother her again. Well, good for me. She gave me an opportunity. I went to my house and let myself in through the spare key. Amelia was out to bring her boyfriend. I made myself at home and waited in the living room with the divorce papers in front of me. Half an hour later, I heard footsteps coming towards me. They were here. Amelia was talking animatedly to him, but as soon as she saw me, her face went pale. What are you doing? She stuttered. I shook my head. Is that how you're going to welcome your husband? I'm a bit disappointed. What? Husband? The guy asked her in shock. Amelia started panicking. No, wait, but that's about to change. I cut her off, giving her the divorce papers. Please sign those and then leave my house. His house? Amelia, you said you were wealthy and you owned this house, her boyfriend exclaimed. I chuckled. Yes, she owns it. In her dreams. Amelia clenched her fists and started yelling at me for I don't know what, because I was too busy ignoring her. Her boyfriend asked her to return everything he'd given her to this point and left. Good thing he came to his senses soon. And as for Amelia, first she yelled, then she got tired and started threatening me, and in the end, she started begging. I gave her a pen. Sign those papers, or I can make it even uglier by calling the cops, I said. I think she was taken aback at my tone, as I'd only ever behaved sweetly to her, but I'll be damned to still do that. Amelia signed with shaky hands and left, and for the first time in a year, I felt that a load had been lifted off my shoulders.
So folks, that is today's video. If you guys enjoyed, please let me know, and maybe react to more of those. And I will just say I have more games for us to play. Just let me know. Okay, guys, so I will say our next game is this game we'll be playing on the channel, so let me know if you guys want to see more content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everyone.